everyone, and welcome to Spring Forward. My name's Kristen Gietzen, and I'm the President and CEO at Arbor Circle. Thank you for joining us today for this virtual event and helping us celebrate the work of Arbor Circle and recognize our 2021 Spring Forward honoree, Chris Mathis. Thank you to our sponsors and those of you who purchased event kits. You helped to make this event possible and helped to sustain our work throughout the year. 2020 marked a significant change for Arbor Circle. There isn't a corner of our organization that wasn't impacted by this pandemic. But our staff responded with such grace and resiliency that we were able to continue providing mental health, substance abuse, and family development services to nearly 12,000 individuals and families across West Michigan. We're so proud of our work, and I'm so proud of our staff. At the same time, COVID-19 shone a bright light on the racial, economic, and social disparities and inequities that were seeded long before this pandemic. While we don't know the full impact of COVID-19, we do know that the long-term impact on mental health will be significant. We need our community's support to help us do our part in fostering resilience and helping us unravel the inequities we face. In light of our successes and these challenges, we bring you a conversation between Chris Mathis, our 2021 honoree, and Cole Williams, our featured guest. We first met Chris when he was doing youth leadership work with the City of Grand Rapids. He came to speak to a group of our youth who had graduated from high school in spite of experiencing homelessness. We were blown away by his passion, his enthusiasm, his life story, and his ability to connect with these young people. He told us that he wanted to do more, reach more youth, and he wanted to help further the mission of Arbor Circle. From there, he served on our board of directors for nearly a decade. We miss him. We are thrilled to be able to honor him as our 2021 Spring Forward honoree. Cole is a parent, a mentor, a community leader who is equally enthusiastic about his work. He focuses his work on boys and young men of color who face significant challenges. Chris and Cole will be exploring themes of creativity and resilience and how they impact our collective mental health. They will be responding to questions from our conversation cards that many of you received in your event kit. We hope that you'll take time to reflect on these themes, which are core to Arbor Circle's work.
There's layers to that.
Yes. I mean, especially when you think about how can others help you. I'm good at helping people. Like, what you need, I got you. But asking for help and calling people. I mean, I can just think of how many times you've said to me, "Hey, Cole, just call me, bro. Just check in."
Yeah.
And how difficult I think it is as a man to ask for help and even say, yo, I don't know how to do this. Or I'm going through something and I don't know if I can talk to anybody about it, because it's much more easier just to, everybody tells you just do it yourself.
Yep.
You got this, Cole. You got this. So I've been learning that I got to stop saying I got it when I really don't have it. And I think that's something that I've had to learn how to do. And I've had to be okay with recognizing that I do struggle and I isolate. I'm an isolator. You know me for a while.
But I know when to give you space.
Yeah.
And let you do what you have to do, recharge, and then come back.
Yeah.
And we reconnect like we never missed a beat.
So I see that happening with a lot of men too. Like, I got a lot of friends that are going through stuff and they pull back, they isolate, and then when they're ready, they come back.
Yep.
Do you think that's something that we just do as men? Is that just natural, or is that just
Personally, I think it's tied back to our childhood. I think about the situation, the things that we grew up in,
Okay.
right? And think about the opportunities and the times where, as kids, as young boys, we've had opportunities to be vulnerable. It's okay to cry. Any of those things. You never do that in front of people.
No.
You isolate when you do that.
Yeah, that's not allowed.
Right, exactly. It's never allowed, right? So
That's
you
not allowed.
isolate to go and do those things, and then you recharge, and when you recover, you come back like it never happened.
Yeah.
There you go. So you get that 7-year-old boy that just so happens is still doing that as a 45-year-old man. Same thing, right? Nothing has really changed. But it's those traumas or whatever that individual went through back when, they're still isolated in that same way, even as an adult.
Well, I think you just used the key word, trauma. Like, I think
Yeah.
I think it's a word that we often use a lot. We use trauma a lot, trauma lens, trauma focus. But I don't necessarily think people know to recognize their trauma when their trauma is happening too.
Yes. I question if most people of color even understand what true trauma is. I question if we even really understand what does it mean to live with trauma. And what I mean by that is, you experience so much at such a young age, and as you become older, you just become immune to it. You know what I mean? I saw a video not too long ago, man, of a teenager walking home from school, and he's on one side of the street, and across the street from him is a shootout. Like a few guys get to this big fight, all of a sudden guns are firing. He looks and he keeps walking. He never runs, he never flinches, he didn't do anything. He just kept walking. That tells me he is so immune to violence in his community that it has become second nature for him. To not have the typical reaction that the person would have would be to flee, fearful. None of that happened, right? So I have to imagine, or think, how many times has he experienced that? From birth up to his teen years, how many times has he went through that kind of an experience or something related to it that has triggered that kind of a reaction for him? And now he's to a point where it's just a part of life.
Well, that makes me think of the mask that we wear. So my son said it well. He said, so Dad, when I get off this porch and leave this house where I feel my safest, you know me and all of my emotional elements. But when I get on these streets, I got to put my mask on. And then that really made me think about how many masks do men of color have to wear to navigate these systems that we operate out of. And I think, man, how many masks do I have to put on a daily basis? How many times I have to smile when I don't feel like smiling, so I seem non-threatening. But now that I have this COVID, the pandemic on, I have to wear a mask. So then even now I have to somebody said smile with your eyes. I'm like, well, how do you smile with your eyes? So now I'm like, do I need to learn how to smile with my eyes so people aren't threatened when I walk into a space? Do I have to, so I find that it isn't just a trauma. Yeah, man.
That's so interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
That we have to feel that. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
When I go to a grocery store and to anywhere, I feel that same way.
Yeah.
There are certain things that we have to do to make sure that we're showing we're not a threat to others.
Yeah. Yeah. So when people tell me, when they talk about this idea of, how do I, not the word give back, but how do I ask for help? I don't know how to ask for help. Asking for help it's hard, but I recognize if I don't do the work, and I'll be candid too, I recently started going to therapy.
Good. And
it was only because it dawned on me that if I want to really help brothers that are saying they need the help, I first have to model what that looks like.
Yep.
And so I think even us having this conversation today is an important opportunity to start these conversations, because I'm like, we're not represented in spaces where we need to be talking about mental health.
That's good.
And I think in order for us to be able to do that, we first have to be the first models of that.
I'll add one more thing to that, vulnerability. I think one of the most difficult places for me to ask for help is in my marriage.
Oh, man.
Is in my marriage. I come from an environment where, again, you figure it out, right? You do it your way, you figure it out, whatever that may be. And here I have someone who is there to support me and be my helper when needed, and I still struggle to ask for that support and help, or even to communicate that thing because of the image that I've been told this is what we're supposed to look like. All right, so in my 40 years, this is what I've been told, and now I struggle, and it puts strain in our relationship because of those reasons.
Wow.
And so it's something I deal with every day, and I've gotten much better, much better, but it's still a fight. It's still a fight to not just communicate those things, but then to actually make the ask on the other side, that this is what I'm in need of. And you take it a layer deeper than that for me, and that ask may not necessarily be something around the house or with the kids. That ask could be emotional support. That right? That ask could simply be, here's what my day was like, and I just need to share it with you without judgment, without anything. I just need to be able to vet it out.
Yeah.
That's not normal for us to have those kind of conversations. Yeah. And I think it's also not normal for a lot of Black women to hear us communicate that. Although that's what they ask for often.
I agree. For me, what I've learned that I need someone to actually listen to me. Listen, and we've come to define listening as an act of love. And so recognize that I need you to listen to me without having already a pre-answer prepared for me, without giving me an answer, because at this point, I already know the answer. I just might need you just to hear me. So just let me say it. It might take me a while to get it out. It might not even look like I may not even look like I know what I'm talking about, right? But I just need you to hold space. That's it. I need you to hold space for me to be vulnerable enough to say what's going on. Without judging me.
That's it.
Yeah. Because if you can do that for me, then I'm gonna feel brave. I think that's another word for me I've been recognizing: safety and bravery. Like, I need you to hold space for that. And it doesn't always feel good when I'm always holding space for others and no one's creating a space for me to do that.
I would say, for me, well, first off, let me start prefacing with this. I think one of the most difficult things to be is,
come on.
I think two of the most difficult things to be is a Black man, but the extra layer to that is a Black man that's a leader in their space. Right? And the reason I say that is because not only as a Black man, we don't have a space to be vulnerable and to share these things, but then you double that layer when you make us a leader. Now we really don't have a space to share these things. Yeah. Right? There's nothing because we're told that this is what we have to be every day, all day. We gotta have all the answers for everybody else, but never have the answers for ourselves. Yep. Right? And so I think for me, one of the challenges I have with that is being a Black man in business, in leadership, in a number of spaces, and never having a place where leadership can go and be vulnerable. That this doesn't exist. There's no space for us to be vulnerable with anyone around us because we're expected to be all these things. Yeah. The thing that I think helps me the most, or would help me the most, is simple encouragement. Yeah. That's it. Just encouragement, right? Because the truth of it is, the only one that really gets to see that Chris after hours is my family. Yeah. And being vulnerable in this moment, what I think the world sometimes forgets is that we're human too. And although I love doing all these things, I love to sign books and take pictures and meet people and greet and be on stage in front of 500 people. After I do all these things and I've poured my entire, everything in me has been poured out in front of this audience, right? So I've been told that I got to get on this stage for 45 minutes. And for 45 minutes to an hour, I have to not only answer Q&A, but I got to relive all of my traumas.
All your trauma.
I got to relive all of my traumas for the next hour for the entertainment and benefit of the 500 people in the audience. Yeah. And when I'm done and I leave out of there and I take that deep breath and I get in my car, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And you take that deep breath and you get in your car, you've got nothing left. Nothing left. Yeah. No one ever says, how are you? Yeah. They never ask. Yeah. They never ask if you're okay. It's never a moment of, let's make sure you're good, right? And then they wonder why we charge all this money to do this. And what I tell them is, somebody's got to pay for my counseling that I'm going to need to get back right after I'm done with all this, right? When I got to do this over and over and over, and I got to relive all these things, someone has to be there to help me get my life back on track. Because I'm going to go home and cuddle like a little baby and cry it out and be broken for a little while. And it's even painful because when I go through these moments and I come home to my family, my kids don't get to spend time with me.
And you still have to show up for them.
Man, that's a whole other level, right? I go to the room or downstairs and I sit by myself for a little while. Yeah. And I'm just working to recover and bounce back. And in the midst of doing that, what they don't get to see is that my kids are not suffering because they can't be with me in that moment. Because I need that time to myself to recover so that I can come back to where my current life is at and remind myself, Chris, you don't live like that anymore. Wow. Chris, those things aren't here anymore. You don't do those things anymore. And I have to remind myself of that in that process of recovery to get back to that moment and to bring myself back to the current time. And so I think to say all of that, to say this, the thing that I think helps me and a lot of others is simply encourage us. Encourage us. If you can look in my face and see that, man, this dude's been working all day long. I don't know what he's been doing, but he looks exhausted. You know what I mean?
No.
Just encourage. Yeah. Just give us an encouraging word, because that's the one thing I think that is missing. I think that part is missing for us as leaders, as black men who are leaders. I think that is the piece that's missing in that puzzle. Is we're expected to be everything, and we got to do it with no encouragement.
And I also think we need to hold space for black men to do that for each other.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100% agree.
Yeah.
And we'll do it privately.
Yeah.
You know, we'll send the text messages and
we will.
on our phone calls and whatnot, but it's rarely done in a public light.
Yeah.
You know, it's rarely done in a very intentional way.
Yeah.
Publicly.
Yeah.
And so there's a missing piece there.
One barrier is that you take care of your own. You don't, there is no mental health. Like,
It's taboo.
Yeah, it's very taboo. It just reminds me of the movie Soul Food.
Okay.
And the uncle with the television.
Yeah.
And he was kind of stored away. And then
Everything precious.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man, that's a whole nother one.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother one.
Generation
of mental health. But you know what? The thing is, I was talking about this, the difference between language, mental illness, mental health.
Yes.
Right? And so I think the play that comes with even the way that we even describe mental health is can be a barrier.
Yeah.
I think that if I don't see men of color, if I don't see them in material, if I don't see them on television, if I don't see anybody talking about mental health, then we're not dealing with that. And if I go to people and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, man, drink that up, smoke that up. You know what I'm saying? Get a girl and you'll be cool. You'll be cool. Yeah. So it becomes all these outside forces that are also telling me when I'm thinking about I should be addressing my issues that, bro, you cool. You just need to do this and you'll be fine. But they're giving me prescribed information that doesn't really fit or align with my true mental health concerns and needs. And then when I show up to the agency or organization, there's nobody in there that looks like me. There's no material that says that you even work with people like me. And then every television series that I may have seen or watched tells me that if you show up in these spaces, they're gonna put you on medication or you're gonna be incarcerated.
We're not in the commercial.
Yeah, no.
We're not in the advertisements.
None of that.
They don't make it to our community.
No.
They don't have our zip codes on them.
No. And of course, we have gotten extremely better now. But I still think there is a lot of work that still needs to be done around how we are providing support and information to Black and brown communities when we talk about mental health. But I think the first thing is I'm noticing is just the barrier of it, the language barrier. And then making sure that, what do they call them, health providers are doing the work. And so that also leads me back to the barbershop. Mm-hmm. And then recognizing that, and I've been a big component of pushing this, that we need to be training barbers who are right on the front lines with men of color, with first aid, mental health, and all of those other things, training them and supporting them, and providing services for them, because a lot of barbers don't have health insurance.
Right.
You know, and so we're not even talking about the fact that a lot of these brothers aren't even getting their own mental health addressed, yet they are on their feet all day taking in people's mental health stuff and hearing their trauma narratives and not equipped to be able to really guide them into to professionals that can support them. So I think that we have to do a better job at how we use the language and how service providers interact with folks in the community. That's good. Yeah.
I would say the thing coming up is that first off, it's a lack of education. Absolutely. I didn't grow up in a space, in a home with family members who understood mental health or the symptoms of anything related to mental health. And then when you think about us as a community, oh, there's nothing wrong, he's just bad. Right? That's a typical response we get, right?
Yeah.
Right? Where he's over there bumping his head on the wall and doing all these things that just don't make sense for a child of that age, and that's our response to it. Yeah. And so when I think about that, I think that as Black men, we've just learned that this is our norm, right? It's normal for us to never sit with our back to a door. It's normal for us to have to observe a space, a room of people before we make our way through it. It's normal for us to feel these ways around each other, and feel this sense of anxiety and cautiousness. These have become our norm, when in reality those are symptoms that may or may not, fit in whatever category of mental health. But we don't know, and we don't take the time to get that checked out. And I think for me personally, that's what did, was feeling certain kinds of way, and I didn't understand why in that moment I felt this way. And I didn't know how to explain to my wife how I felt, or why I felt, and I just no understanding of it. And so I ended up going and getting help. And if I can really be vulnerable, I just take the story on how it all happened. So, I was licensed to carry a pistol, and I was at the office one day, and I called my wife as I was leaving the office. She didn't answer the phone. And so the normal thing is I think maybe she didn't hear it, or she's in the bathroom or whatever. No. Where I'm from, somebody kicked the door in. Somebody robbed the place. You know what I mean? It's something. And so I'm racing to get home, man. I'm racing to get to the house. We were newly married a few months at the time. And I called over and over and over, and she's not answering. And so I'm speeding to get there. And when I got there, man, I pulled my gun out, walking around, looking downstairs. There's no lights on. And as I started to go upstairs, I see the bedroom light, and I hear some noise. And she says, "Chris, is that you?" And I said, "Yeah, what are you doing?" She said, "I'm sitting there watching TV." She said, "Do you have your gun out?" Because she heard me, slide. And I said, "Yeah." She said, "What's wrong with you?" And in that moment, I thought to myself, it's not normal to feel this way about my wife not answering the phone. I need to better understand why I feel this way. And that's what drove me to want to get help. And so I started seeking out counseling from that day forward, and then I started learning all these things about myself that I didn't know.
I think one thing they can do is you can start first with re-examining and assessing yourself. I've come to know as a parent that in order for my children to really value their mental health, they first have to see me doing it. And so we talk about self-care. So this idea of finding opportunities for self to take care of self, and doing some of those things that bring a level of happiness, that it doesn't require like this host of like real extravagant things, but it could be just you taking some time to just enjoy the weather, getting outside of the house, even learning how to take deep breaths. When someone talked to me about breathing and talked to me about breathing techniques, that was so foreign to me. But once I recognized like the idea of just sitting still and taking deep breaths, the impact of how that stillness could bring me to a place of mindfulness, that was really, I think, really helped me in my daily life. So I think that once they move past out of themselves, then I think the next step is really finding opportunities in organizations. And Google, I always tell people Google is amazing when you're looking for some stuff. So when you find people that align with mental health and what that means, and find ways to like connect with those kinds of services. I think letting go of labels. I mean, hearing the word crazy, when you hear the word crazy, there's a kind of a negative connotation that comes with that. So I think sometimes we just really have to reframe and flip this stuff on its head and be okay with recognizing it's okay for me to take medication if that's what I need. It's okay for me to practice yoga if that's what I need. It's okay for me to work out, because for some, the best way to relieve some of that stuff with mental health is to get into a gym and work on my physical, so that I can get some of that stuff out of me. So I think it's just recognizing that mental health is an okay conversation to have. We all have it, and I think that's it. Acknowledging that we all have it.
Yeah.
And then finding ways to make sure that we channel it in the right way and getting the support that we need.
Thank you, Chris and Cole. Thank you for sharing a part of yourselves and leading us through one incredible conversation. My name is Judy Freeman, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors of Arbor Circle. As we reflect on the ideas presented tonight, I'm also thankful to be able to share a little bit more about myself and my journey with Arbor Circle. I became involved with Arbor Circle professionally as I was a principal with Grand Rapids Public Schools. In this role, I sought mental and behavioral health services for the children and the parents, all of the families that I served. I worked with Arbor Circle to actually pilot a program where we brought a social worker to become a part of our staff. And it was interesting because during this pandemic time frame, I went back to a book of letters that my students wrote for me, and the very first letter that I read was from an 8th grade girl who said, "Thank you for bringing me to that anger management class by Arbor Circle." Can you imagine? She said, she continued to say, "The class changed my life forever." And what she said was what I witnessed in terms of my students' lives being changed by the service that they received. Following my role in the schools, I worked to develop a stronger system of care for early childhood for Kent County, and Arbor Circle was a lead agency in that effort. I continued to work with them as they oversaw programs that had a multi-generational approach, ultimately preparing children for success in school and in life. When asked to become an Arbor Circle board member, it was a pretty easy decision for me. I know that their work is crucial to making a better community. As an Arbor Circle board member, I continue to see how this work changes lives. Arbor Circle is truly unique, and their impact is rooted in the resilience that we all have at our core. As we look towards the recovery from this pandemic, we know that the needs for mental health, substance use, and family development services are greater than ever, and that healing our community is going to require every one of us. As this time together is winding down, I want to once again thank our very appreciated sponsors and those of you who purchased an event kit, because these contributions will also contribute to the work that we are seeing done by Arbor Circle. In your event kits, you'll see some really fun activities and some great things to use. You will also see some question cards. We'd like you to check them out and engage some of your own circle in a conversation about the importance of mental health. Lastly, as you look for ways to support our community, I ask that you consider a very generous gift to Arbor Circle, either by giving now through the link on your screen, or go to arborcircle.org/give. Your gift will support the thousands of children, adults, and families that are served by Arbor Circle every year, and I thank you.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Chris and Cole. Thank you to our sponsors, and thank you to all of you for participating in this event today. If this inspired you to learn more about Arbor Circle, please visit us at arborcircle.org. While it's difficult to imagine what 2020 would have been like without COVID-19, we do know that we survived this because of the generous and compassionate support of our sponsors and our donors, our staff and our volunteers, and most importantly, our clients who taught us so much this year. Thank you for participating, and we'll see you on the other side.